Okay, Kelly and Nancy, I'm going to explain to you one of the ways that you can go about resizing the side border design for your 4 panels of the Retro Rumble cushion. All right, so this is what I did. And what I did basically is if you look closely, you can see that I just opened up one of the panels and using the Create Layouts tool and this mirror copy horizontal tool is how I reproduced it so that they would just be side by side. So I'm going to actually open up a new page. I'm going to show you quickly a couple of tips about actually using that tool before I go into the rest about how I resize the borders. So let's just have your Create Layout toolbar open. When you insert a design, it's going to obviously navigate to the last place that you were at. So I'm just going to choose panel number 1 in the Jeff design and open it. Always get that message warning you that it's not an original embroidery design. Just say okay. So it comes in bright pink because that's the color that is the default color for when you have selected an object that it's going to look like. If you come, while it's still pink, when you come over here to the mirror copy horizontal and you click on it, oh brother, let me plug in my computer. Sorry about that. So while this is selected and you go ahead and click on the mirror copy horizontal, you'll see over on the screen that it came in black and white and it just looks kind of fuzzy. Don't move your mouse. Just go ahead and hit the enter button because when you do that, it came in exactly side by side with the first design. What I want you to do next is you would have zoomed in on here. I'm going to turn off my grid so that you can see this a little bit better. I'll turn on the true view so it's also a little clearer. Go ahead and click on the second one that was mirror imaged, and you'll see right here that you've got the boundary box right here. I don't want you to use this because that would resize your design. Okay, I just want you to use the keys on your keyboard and jog it over to the left so that those turquoise colored seam lines lie one on top of the other. And now your design is exactly as you would hope it would be when you sew these pieces together. All right, what I will do next is I will select both of these 2 designs and I'll do the same thing. I'll come back up to the mirror copy horizontal and I'll click on it. Again, you're going to see on the screen that you'll see that fuzzy black. Don't touch anything, just hit enter. And because these first 2 were lined up with one another, all you need to do now is make sure that you select both of them. Zoom in and again, using the arrows on your keyboard, just jog it over so those turquoise seam lines line up with one another. I may have gone too far. Yeah. So just back up and just do this carefully and slowly. There's no right or you don't want to be in too much of a hurry. While they are lined up, go ahead and click off of it. Hit your Control A on your keyboard, which is selecting all of them. Oh no, you don't actually need to do that. You've got hatch 3. So hatch 3 here, if you just hit the center all button while nothing is selected, it will center them on your 0 axis. All right, what I want you to do next is now Control A and right click with your mouse and just lock them. So that way they just stay there where they're at. The next thing that you would be doing with this design, I'm going to zoom back over to my design number 1, is you would then open the side border and you would rotate it so that it's in this position on your screen. What you want to do with it is do the same manner that we just did a little while ago with selecting it using your mirror copy horizontal and go ahead and make 3 copies. All right, a total of 3 of the side borders that are sitting right on top of your 4 panels. What I then did is you're going to see that I've got a lot of pink guidelines on my screen here. So the first guideline that I clicked onto was right at the 0 axis, right at the top. So just zoom in as close as you can on here and put one right there at 0. The next one that's important is you want to find out where you want these designs to end. Now you're going to see that I've already resized mine here, but it didn't originally look like this. What I did is I plopped myself a guideline right up here where this last seam line would have gone. All right. The next thing that I did then is I figured out probably what I should have not done here. This original design with all of these little scallops, this design where the seam line was at was actually way out here. So what I needed to do was figure out, okay, how much do I need to shrink it? And I'm only shrinking it on the width. I'm not shrinking the overall design, just the width of this. And this was the distance between, this was the original size of the design, and this is where I want it to be. All right, click on your M button, which means your measuring tool is going to come up, and just measure that distance. So that distance right there is going to be about 10 millimeters. Okay, 10 millimeters that we needed to resize this design to make it just a little bit smaller. 10 millimeters isn't very much when you're talking about how many different little scallops we've got here. So the original side view scallop had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It had 7 scallops per design. 7 times 2 is 14, and then we needed an additional 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 10 millimeters divided up basically is going to be about this little tiny smidgen right over here. It's not very much. It's not even 2 millimeters that we needed to resize our design. So what I want you to do then is you would just play with grabbing all of your scallops. Basically, this is what we want to do, right? You could grab the first set. Let me click off of here. Oh, you have to just hit your escape key to make that measuring tool go away. So what you would have then done is you would have just grabbed this scallop right here, and you would have just used these, zoom in on this little sizing bar, and you would have just dragged it over so that the seam line would have lined up more or less with the amount that you want to shrink it. All right, so what I probably ought to do at this point is I'm going to go ahead and hit some undos so that you can see that this used to be bigger. All right, I'm just going to hit some undo. That might have been where it originally was at. I'll hit one more undo to see if anything's changing here. No, I'm probably over here. Okay, so do you get the idea of what I'm trying to tell you? What you will be doing is you would have created an entire layout of your 4 blocks, or however many blocks you were going to use. And as we had discussed earlier in another conversation, the appearance of the side borders was a better appearance in our opinion than using the one that actually came that was going to fit in here, because it only needed to be resized just that tiny bit. It wasn't very much, so then the point then would have been, maybe get rid of the ones that were here, select them and delete them. Using the one that we resized, go ahead and use your mirror copy horizontal, enter it, zoom in on it, grab it, use your arrow key to zoom over, to just move it over so that your little scallops lined up. All right, let's go ahead. We know we don't need a full measure here, so let's just keep this one selected. Mirror copy horizontal, enter it, zoom in on that one, and go ahead and let's get right here. Still selected. It's easier to see it that it's selected if you don't have the True View turned on. And just use your arrow keys and slide it over. Get those seam lines lined up. Let's see how good of a job I did at resizing this. Program's moving a little bit slow right now. I actually like to toggle back and forth between True View and Stitch View so that we get a good view of those stitches lining up on top of one another. Now remember that you're going to have some pull and push that's happening when you actually stitch these things out. So this is just going to be a little guesstimation of how well we did. So what do we want? We want the end of this scallop to end up right here on this seam line, which it did. I'm going to send you this resized file. I just wanted you to see the process of resizing this. All right, so what would be the next thing we do? We don't need, obviously, to stitch out a full repeat of this design here, right? What we need is we need to get rid of these last little elements. And we probably could go ahead and resize the entire border so that we've got that seam allowance and everything else that's going to work out properly. Now, it wouldn't hurt for you to go ahead and stitch the whole thing out and just trim it down, but there's no sense really in doing that. So what would I do next? I would actually go ahead and select this resized design right here. I would cut it. You can do that in a couple of different ways. Just come up to your top toolbar, use your cutting tool, go ahead and open a new page. My program is running a little bit slow right now. I don't know why. Pardon the lag. Bummer. I hope I'm not going to lose what's happening here. And then I will paste it. Okay, so we need to save this design that has been resized. And I'm going to zoom out, find out where it's at. It's right there. It's selected. So unselect it. Go ahead and hit your center tool. Really running slow here. Center it. All right, so now it is centered. I'm going to turn off the grid. What I'll do with it next is I would go ahead and select it. I would use the rotating tools on your toolbar, rotate it back so that it is vertical in your hoop. That's about 6 clicks on this 15-degree selector. Turn on your hoop if you want to. You don't really necessarily need to, although Machine really does prefer that you have a hoop selected. It's your GR hoop for your 15,000. Fits perfectly in here. Come on down to Output Design. Let's go ahead and export this design because it is now, if this is a stitch file, which means that we will export it, not save it. If we try to save it, it's going to try to send it as a EMB. So I need to just navigate on my own computer here to where I've got my designs at. And while I'm in this process, I'll just chatter while I'm zooming through here. My computer is really running slow. I don't know why. Probably has something in the background doing a virus check or something. Bad timing, huh? Let's find the Sweet Pea folder. Sweet Pea. Rumble bench cushion. So sorry that this is running slow. What I'm going to call this is bottom. Okay, and it is a JEF file. So I will save it. All right, that way we know that it is actually safe, because the next thing that you need to do if you're going to be picky about the way that your design actually looks is you are going to want to make your little flowers alternate. So because we were using the Create Layouts horizontal tool, it was mirror imaging these designs. I discovered, at least on mine, which may not matter to you, is that I also wanted my flowers to alternate, to be every other one of the flowers, which meant that, you know, for you two that are doing a 4-panel cushion, you actually are going to need 3 different hoopings of these borders. This could be border number 1 that goes first. Your border number 2, if you don't want these flowers to be side by side, you're going to have to make yourself a new file in which your flowers are going to be alternated onto the alternating ones. And then obviously for file number 3, it's not only going to be alternating, actually I think the flowers might be okay, but you're going to want to get rid of these extra little scallops at the end. All right, so what I'm going to do now is, in order to just save some time, I'm going to pause this video, work on this design, and show you how that end result is going to look. So this is what I've done. This is the resized design. I'm going to show you what I would do with the flowers in order to create hooping number 2. I have gone ahead and I've selected the entire design and I ungrouped it. Over here, go ahead and change your sequence bar so that you're seeing these things as colors rather than as objects. All right, so when you do that, right down over here are the centers of the flowers and the flower itself. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold down my control key and select both of those items. I will now duplicate them. So I can duplicate 2 different ways. I can either hit Control D on my computer keyboard, which is my preferred way to do it because what it's done is it's copied them, but it's put them down at the bottom of the sequence list. So they're actually piled up on top of one another. And what I'm going to do is I'm just using, while they're selected, I'm just going to move them over using my arrow keyboard on the keyboard. And it goes kind of slow, but in a second, what I'm going to do when I think I'm about where I want them, I'm going to pause and I'm just going to zoom in a little bit here so that I can see, does that flower look like it's centered? You know, it looks pretty good. I might move it a couple of spaces over. All right, so now what I've got is too many flowers, right? What am I going to do? I'm going to draw a box around the one that I don't need anymore, which are these 2. I'm just drawing that box by dragging my mouse down with my left button selected, and I'm going to delete those. And then remember which ones we need. We don't need this first one. We don't need these second ones, third one, or fourth one. Just go back up into the sequence view, select them, and get rid of them by hitting the delete key. So they're lined up according to how they need to be lined up so that they will all integrate nicely with one another. All right, this is already centered in your hoop, but I would go ahead and select these 2 things and I would move them up in the sequence bar. Now, it's not that important that you do this, but you may want them back where they originally belong, which is after the scallops and before the borders. Just drag them up. Okay, and that's all it takes. Go ahead and select all of the design by hitting your Control A key. Computer's still running a little bit slow here. We want to rotate them back so they are, we could actually do 2 things here. I could actually just select a hoop and put this in the hoop, rotate the hoop faster than this design is wanting to rotate. Neither tool is working very quickly right now. Seems like I've still got something going on in the background. Okay, at any rate, here you go. You've got this design set. So go ahead and export this design. Give it a name that is going to make sense to you, which in my case would be, what did we name the last one? We named it top bottom, right? I'm going to call it top bottom 2, meaning hooping number 2. Okay, so just take a look at it. So what's going to happen with the original is your next for hooping number 3 is going to want to start with a flower. Okay, if you want your flowers alternating. All right, so back to the design. Remember, this has all been resized. Computer's running pretty slow, so this one's going to be fine because it is starting with a flower. We just need to get rid of these last little bits here. So let's do this. Let's go ahead and we could either work here on this screen or we could cut this out of here and take it to a new page. My personal preference is to put it on a new page. You know, for me, it just is a little bit cleaner and actually, that might not have been the best choice. You know what? The reason I'm going to say that is because we want to keep that seam allowance on this one, right? Yeah, so we're going to want to keep the seam allowance of the basting boxes and all of that. We just want to get rid of these last little motifs here. So how about if we do this? Go ahead and select it. They are grouped together, remember. So we're going to have to right click and ungroup them. And now what we can do is we could come in here and we could select these last little objects and we can delete them. I'm going to draw a box around all that. It's a little sluggish. I probably should shut down my computer and start again because this is just running so slow right now. It's actually irritating me, and I'm sure it's irritating you as well. This one there, let's delete. So everything here would have to be resized. Okay, so just do it again, simply like we were resizing other things a little while ago. What I'm going to tell you to do is draw a box around it. Now remember, these things have been locked in place, so even though I drew my box a little bit big, it won't grab any of this because it can't select anything that's not there. So what do I want to do? I think the only things I actually need to resize are the basting boxes and this satin line and the cover stitch that's on top of it. So this is actually going to take a little bit of work. What I would probably want to do is I'm going to lock everything that I don't want to move. So if it's this here, let's turn off the true view so that we can see things turn pink, okay? We are going to want to save that. Let's go ahead and right click and lock it. Don't want them to move. Up here, let's select this one and this one and that. Let's go ahead and lock those ones. It'd be easier if I just went all the way up. But okay, and this one we want locked. So they cannot be tampered with. All right, everything else that's here, we could draw a box around it. And you know, your program's going to do a pretty good job at resizing these things. So what are we going to do? We've got all those jump stitches and everything that are in the way. We don't really want to see those. So let's go ahead and get on to true view. And everything else that's here, let's just use this boundary box, big arrow, right? And let's resize this by simply dragging it over. When I've got it a good distance over, I'm going to go ahead and zoom in on it. And what I want is I want this seam line here to line up with this seam line here. Let me zoom on it, right? I want this seam line to be where this one is. I want this basting box to be where this basting box is. So unfortunate because this is a big group design. Can't get too close in, but it's going to be about right there. So what happened to all of our other objects? Did they get resized in a way that's not looking very good? It's possible that it did. So in that case, what I would probably do is go ahead and I think I did this on my own actually when I resized it a little bit when I was playing earlier, is that I went ahead and I selected a blanket stitch and I just tried to simulate what this spacing was and I redrew a motif line on top of the satin line. Not a hard thing to do. As you get used to your software program, you're going to learn all of these little things. But let's just say I'm going to do a quick tutorial. I would digitize in my very slow moving program an open shape. That open shape is going to be a blanket stitch. And these little settings can be changed in a little while, but that would be the way that I would probably replace those red blanket stitches, is that I would probably measure the distance on these existing ones over here, and I would just draw myself a new line from this point here, click on it, hold down your control key, zoom to the end of the design where you want it to end. Control key keeps this line perfectly straight on your design list. Hit the enter key and you can see that I've now got a blanket stitch and it's obviously too small and it's not in exactly the right spot where we want it. So play with it a little bit, okay? We can hit our select key and select it. I would move it up on the satin stitch so that the raw edges or these two edges match up together. How wide does this need to be? Spacing looks like it's going to be okay, more or less. Maybe, I think it's going to be dinked with a tiny bit, but I would probably make the width of this, let's try for a 3. Not enough. 3.5. I'm just typing into my keyboard. That looks pretty good. Let's go ahead and move it down a little. Still too narrow. I could also have just used my key M and measured these existing ones to find out what that actual measurement is. That probably would have been faster than all this playing around. What did I just try? Just tried 4. 4 is getting me there. It's probably going to be about a 4.5 in width. Yeah, that looks pretty good. And you know what? By the time you get this thing sewed, it's not going to matter quite that much. You know, the spacing on this, let's go ahead and zoom onto this one. Cut M, measure 2.74 spacing. And let's see, what was that one up here? What I should have done is change the color of that. Let's make it turquoise. Ooh, wrong one. Here it is over here, right? Yeah, and the outline, tool and object properties, 2.5. So spacing was about the same. I have it at 2.5 here, and I think that over there was about 2.5 as well. So that's how you would redo that one, okay? What do I want to do? I would also keep it selected, and I would use the flipping tool, and I would flip it that direction. Then I would come in here, and I would actually copy that and Control D, use the arrow key, take it up to the one that's up on top, so you can replace that one as well. Then we'll come on over into the sequence bar, and we would get rid of those red ones. The original red ones, that is. I would also probably, doing the same sort of method, adjust the spacing of those satin lines a little bit more to make sure that they're just not too dense. So let's go ahead and select those, and let's delete them. These ones here, let's go ahead and turn them into one of the pinky colors so that we can see that they're similar to the originals. All right, so there you go with that. And then again, you know, these are not original lines, remember, they really are stitch files. Let's see if we can use another tool by selecting them here on your sequence bar, edit, and let's see if it would recognize the stitches. Yeah, recognize stitches will actually try to analyze this and turn them into original EMB objects. Let's see what it looks like if we come down in the sequence bar, break them apart. Don't even know where they're going to be at in this sequence. Hmm. Yeah, so anyway, just kind of check on that spacing of that. Yeah, that is that right there. And what is it telling me on the fill? It's saying that it's a satin fill, which is actually not entirely correct. It really is a line, but the spacing on it is telling me that it's 0.25 millimeters apart, which is really tight. So I would highlight that and I would change it to about a 0.4 spacing. That would be a healthier spacing. This here, I think, is going to be an underlay on it. Yeah, it's just like a center run underlay. So this one here, let's go ahead and change that one to a 0.4 spacing. A little bit healthier. Okay, so now what you've got is you've got hooping number 3 ready. Let's go ahead and select it, cut it. You know what we've done? We have some of those things locked, don't we? So let's do this. Let's unlock things. I'm going to just select here, unlock all. And I'm going to go ahead and come in here and just try to grab that. Let's see if it really unlocked everything. Yeah, it looks like it did. Cut it, new page, paste. Go ahead and export that as your hooping number 3. And then you're all ready to transfer these onto your USB and get them to your machine and embroider them. So that's about all there is to that. Sorry, this video ended up taking so long. I am going to save all of these files. I'm not going to just send them to you. If you want to work on this exercise by yourself, that is what I would encourage you to do. But if it just gets to be overwhelming, then let me know and I'll send you the files. Okay, anyway, there we go. Hope all of this was instructional and helpful and not overwhelming. Thanks for watching. Good luck, girls. Bye for now.